story time is going to be a little on the rough side, just like my hair. Right now, we have crazy bad humidity going on. We're supposed to be in the middle of pumpkin spice weather, and instead we are like this close to the 90s. It's not making sense. I should not be running my AC. I should have my heater on and a pumpkin spice latte, and obviously those two things are not happening right now. And yes, I know the camera is flipped. I have no idea how to change the setting on my Samsung S24. I googled it. I tried all the things that popped up on Reddit. None of that was worth anything. So just for the time being, stick around. But anyway, back to the subject matter for today's video. Usually, I do not want anything to do with minors on my channel. But if a minor is watching this, could you please bring your parents into the room? Because this is actually for them too. I really want to stress that. You know, this is a video for everybody. So I just really want some parents to be listening into, being that I am a parent now myself. This is, I bumped the camera. This is a tough subject. And if you decide that the subject is a little too personal for you or a little too scary, that's okay. You can always click off. I've got like a mazillion other videos on this channel and you're not going to hurt my feelings. But if you're curious, this is a true story that happened to me. So you know it's going to be pretty darn good, huh? I'll just adjust that a little bit more. There we go. Okie dokes. So the reason why I'm doing this video is because the last couple days have been kind of weird. I've noticed a lot of news stories with a lot of pearl clutching parents who are just so, I don't know if it's anti-social media specifically or if it's anti-technology. Each person seems to have a different sort of opinion, so I'm just going to mush them all together as one. But there's been a lot of articles lately about parents, and some of them are curiously in my age group, that are doing some pearl clutching, and they want to get rid of tech forever, just everything. They want to go back to the Stone Age. So there's parents who are spending extra money to have landlines put back into their phones at their homes, not realizing, and I speak from experience, that's actually a cost that can add up mighty quick. Some people are just going full Amish and they are removing all electronics from their kids' worlds, which is weird because even the Amish have cell phones now, so take that wherever you want to take that. Amish and Mennonite both seem to be a little less anti-tech these days. It's a little odd. And then there's other people who are just looking at how many things they can ban all at once. And some of the concerns are valid. You know, stranger danger is a valid concern. You should be concerned about that. If you're not concerned about that, I don't know what you're doing. And other people are worried about how certain apps and websites have algorithms that are leading to brain rot and affecting their kids' brains, and those are valid concerns too. I see that more with adults than I do kids. There's a concerning number of over 40-year-old adults who I see with absolute large cases of brain rot, so it makes sense to me. But the whole let's get rid of all the tech forever committee, that confuses me. Now, with that being said, let me take you back to the 1990s so I can show you how very much old hat this problem is. If you think it's bad now, I got some bad news for you. We've always had this problem, and it's always been exactly this bad. It's not gotten any worse, it's not gotten any better, it is exactly on the same level. And that is probably going to scare some of you, and for some of you, you might say, no way. So let's go back to the 1990s. My first journey onto the internet is going to shock you. We had a computer in our house. It was a GeoWorks DOS-based computer. I loved it to pieces. We had this when I was 4 years old. My dad used to be a beta tester for what would become America Online, which is also in the news because AOL has finally decided to outgrow dial-up. So, really sorry to those of you in the rural communities that were still using dial-up, but it's time for you to ask your congressman why they don't believe in Wi-Fi, because we're in 2025 now. But back in the early 1990s, my dad for a little while was a beta tester for America Online. He needed a computer for his job, so we had a computer in the house. And we had the most beta version of America Online you can imagine. I was 4, and I sent my first email ever, I think, to my grandma's house, because my dad's parents had a computer for a little while too. And you want to know how old-fashioned this was? It was in binary. Have you ever tried to write an email in binary? Don't. It'll hurt your brain. This might have actually been the start of the headaches that would lead to the migraines I would have for the rest of my life. Yes, at 4 years old, I was writing in binary. No, I don't recommend teaching that. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, if you'd like to teach it, sure, just, it's a real pain. If you don't know what binary is, it's just zeros and ones. And you hope that the number of zeros and ones that you put together form a letter of the alphabet. By the way, it takes forever to write in binary. This dude had me trying to write an email in binary when I was 4 years old. Please put that into some sort of perspective here. I'm still working on the main alphabet. This dude wants me writing binary. Obviously, there were problems, but somehow I did it because I was an overachiever. But aside from having to write in binary, which again, not a fan of, I can do it, I just don't like it. I loved the computer. I didn't spend a lot of time on the internet because there was nothing to do back then, but I still loved that too. When I was 6, I got my America Online address, and it's still active, mykoriander@aol.com. I still pop in once in a blue moon and read my emails. It's still active. If you want to drop me a line there, you can, but you have the YouTube comments section. We are in 2025. You don't have to do this. But whatever floats your boat, I don't care. I also am on Gmail, so there's that. Anywho, I was 6 when I got my email address. I was 6 when I got online for the first time. America Online used to be a very restricted sort of internet box. We had a literal box. It was about this big. And it had buttons on there for what you wanted, entertainment, science, arts, news, whatever. And I usually went to the kids-only section where Cartoon Network originated from. Before there was a CartoonNetwork.com, we had Cartoon Network on Kids Only. And I have the files on a zip drive somewhere, a zip disk. You might want to Google that one. It's a ridiculously thick floppy disk. But I don't think they work too well these days. I tried it on my old computer and they still don't work right. They used to have downloadable Flash games. So I played a Dexter's Laboratory game where you had to dress him up. I played one where he played dodgeball. And there was a Johnny Bravo game too, but it didn't really work well. But I spent a lot of my time on the kids-only block. Now, let's jump ahead to when I am 8 going on 9. So this is 1995. And this is after my concussion, my last concussion. I already did a video on the concussions, and I'm not going over that again, so you're welcome. If you scroll through my YouTube live thing, you'll find a big sparkly video all about concussions, tubulosa, Pinky and the Brain are on it. You can't miss it. Anyway, so post-concussion, this was about a couple months after the last concussion, and I finally got approved to be homeschooled. We had to fight the state over it. It was traumatizing. I'm still traumatized by it, but we won. So yay. I got to go be homeschooled, and I freaking thrived on it because all the science books that my teacher would never let me touch, I got to touch all of them. I got to do science experiments, and I was so unbelievably happy to be homeschooled. Now, through the 2 programs I went through, I initially went through Oak Meadow, and then I went through Conlara. They did have pen pal programs. So through the school, I would do pen pal letters with my other students in my own age group. And I would sometimes get letters back because that's how it works when you have a pen pal. You spend the postage to send a letter out, and if they like you, they send a letter back, rinse and repeat. So if you are a fan of Pee-wee's Playhouse, yeah, I did the whole Pee-wee pen pal letters thing. And this was great. I still was able to interact with kids my own age and at my own pace which was even better because there was nobody at my own pace at the public schools, but there were in homeschooling. So this was great. I was still making friends, which is what I liked doing. I was not an antisocial kid. I know you looked at my posts and you're probably surprised by that, but no, I wasn't antisocial, at least not yet. My dad had a hissy fit because he said it wasn't real. It's not good enough for me to have pen pals. He wanted me to have real friends. Why couldn't I stay in the public school system? And I was like, my dude, I've been concussed 4 times because we did what you wanted. I went to the schools you picked out, and I went to the hospital as a result. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing repeatedly, expecting a different result. I'm still making friends. I'm still talking to kids my own age. Leave me alone. I'm making friends. He couldn't leave me alone. Now, here's the weird thing about my dad being up my ass all the time about me making friends. This dude repeatedly moved me to places that he knew were no, there were no kids there at all. No kid zones. Which he did the following year when we moved to Pennsylvania. We moved to a racist neighborhood where there were only racist old people, and he chose the neighborhood. He routinely chose the neighborhood in all the places we moved to. So, dude, if you want me to make friends with kids my own age, move me to places where there are kids. Why are you moving me to adult-only areas, specifically in bad, dangerous, no-good neighborhoods? He loved the drama. He always loves the drama. That's why he did it. That was his reasoning. So, I lived in a bad neighborhood in New Jersey, and we were about to move to Pennsylvania a few months ahead. There were no kids my own age for me to play with already, and I didn't know this at the time, but there was going to be even less than that in the new neighborhood. So while I am between transitioning of the moves and I'm about to turn 9, my father poses as me online. The first guy who ever doxed me was my own dad. He posed as me on a different AOL screen name. He posted our home address on the internet for God and everyone to find. And he posted my pictures. And he pretended to be me. And he went into groups that were particularly adults only with my information. Now, it's enough that we have strangers in 2025 that do this to people. Imagine being almost 9 and your own father does this to you for attention. And that's why he said he did it. He wanted attention. I'm like, dude, you are the dad of the household. How much more attention do you want? This was how he was. So imagine my surprise when suddenly in my regular email, I'm getting messages from people asking me if I have already grown hair in places I don't want to mention on YouTube because they'll stop this video, and I totally agree with that. That's not a question that a kid should be reading. Okay? No, I'm 8 at this point. I am 8. I am all about Power Rangers and Sailor Moon and Barbie dolls at this age. We don't ask about that sort of thing. I'm nowhere near puberty yet. So this continued for a while, and because I was so good at being the good girl, I gave my mom all the emails, and I was like, Mom, what's this? And she flipped out on my dad. We moved to Pennsylvania, and it got worse. My dad once again posed as me, this time on chat rooms, which I didn't know what a chat room was. For those of you who don't know, before the days of Instant Messenger and Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and things like that, you had to sign into a different service to have a chat box appear. America Online had chat rooms. There was also a virtual chat room with a lot of real weird-looking CGI people that you could dress as. My dad always posed as a woman if he wasn't posing as me. And he always tried to make his avatar look like Barbie. And, what was it called? It was like Chat World or something like that. It was something World. I remember that. It was a popular game for about a year. And then I think the server went offline or something like that. But anywho, you had to sign into a service to make chat boxes appear. Nowadays, we've got texting and we have Facebook Messenger, and we're all sick of it, but we all kind of use chat without thinking about it. But back then, you had to put in effort. He put in the effort and the work and the time, and he started posing as me on other sites to gain attention, to find me real friends that he approved of. Because I guess having a pen pal in New Zealand that liked to send Sandy Lion stickers in the mail was not approved by him. Which, yes, myself and my pen pals through school, by the way, we either talked about what lessons we had done, which science projects we had done to compare if school was different in New Zealand versus here, and we sent Sandy Lion stickers. We sent stickers through the mail. I sent away, like, my Dalmatian stickers. I would sometimes get, like, a little lion sticker because I loved lions, or I would get, like, little cars, or, like little teddy bears, and we would just send stickers. And apparently that offended my dad. Teddy bear stickers, go figs. So, he posted my information online again, didn't tell my mom, which he's very good at doing that, and we had strangers come to my house. Now, before you guys get riled up, don't worry, nothing bad happened. My mom always answered the door, and my mom always had a landline phone next to the door because she was good at calling the police. And the landline phone was connected to a cordless device, so she could call the police even faster. She loved her cordless phone. It was see-through blue. So we had to call the police a lot. And it got so bad that I couldn't even go to the mall anymore. My mom and I used to love going to the mall because I would go to KB Toys to look at the Barbie dolls, which ought to paint a picture of how very young I am. And there was one time a dude actually tried to grab me at the mall. And when my mom was like, "What are you doing with my daughter?" Dude was like, "Oh, I've been in a relationship with her for 2 years. And I was like, well, that's really interesting because I'm not on any socials. I don't know you. You're a stranger. And my mom was like, that's really interesting because she's only 9. So this led to a fight between my parents. And then I somehow got snatched up into this fight. And my mom was like, why are you posing as her daughter? Why did you post our home information on the internet? Don't you know how reckless and stupid that is? This is all your fault. And my dad was like, this is your fault because you homeschooled her and I want her to have real friends. And my mom was like, then why did we move to a neighborhood that doesn't have children? So, being the referee, I had to referee the two of them. Yes, I had a referee shirt. Yes, it's downstairs. Yes, we've brought it to real wrestling shows. Thank you for asking. Being the referee between my parents, I was finally like, okay, you know what? Time out. Time out. If it's this bad of a problem to you, how about this? How about I pick out a theme through AOL Kids, you supervise me, you pick a pen pal with me, and we'll start all over again. How does this sound? And in my head, that sounded like a good compromise, and I shouldn't have to think about that because I'm a literal child. So, we went through America Online's kids-only thing, erroneously thinking that this was going to be monitored by grown-ups who knew better. You can tell by the story that this is not going to go in that direction. So I go to AOL Kids Only, and I find a new pen pal in a chat that's all about Power Rangers. Because even as a kid, I was like, let me choose one of the most kid-safe properties there are, Power Rangers. There we go. That's kid-safe. So I chose a new pen pal, and my parents saw the screen name. I was transparent. I shared everything with my parents. I was like, here's my password. You can have the whole damn thing. I don't care. Because although I loved going online, I wasn't at the time using it to find other people. I was just doing this to satisfy my dad so he'd shut up. I usually use the computer either to do my homework, or play games, or look up stuff about shows I was watching, like this girl over here. That was it. That was my whole world at this point. So, we found a pen pal, everybody was happy, and I thought that would be the end of the story. It's not, but I thought it would be. So, after that, I made my first ever website on America Online, on AOL Hometown. It's not online anymore. I have the old files. It was an educational page about the cartoon character Bosco. Controversial character, so it is not online anymore. I might turn it into a book someday, but for right now, I have articles on HubPages that echo the content that used to be on there. So if you look through my HubPages link and you find Bosco, that's a glimpse of what used to be there. So it survives, just in a new format where I get paid for it now. So all's well that ends well. And then my second ever website I made when I was almost 10, And it was the skeleton for what would become Moon Sisters when I grew up. It was about my OC character, which is now Codename Sailor Earth. Back then it was just Sailor Earth, until I found out that there were 102,224 other Sailor Earths that got really mad at me on message boards. I was not yet 10. You guys were you Gen Xers were fighting with a 10-year-old over who was more Sailor Earthy. And in case this comes up again, the real Sailor Earth is Tuxedo Mask. Google it. Okay, so learned the hard way about stranger danger. Now, let's go back to that pen pal I mentioned, because you're probably wondering whatever happened to that pen pal, right? Okay, this is a great story. So, a little bit after my second website goes live, and again, that page is no longer in existence, but what was on that page is now part of Moon Sisters, so it does survive, it's just in a much nicer format. Anywho, the pen pal that we had agreed on. This dude said that he was just a couple months older than me. I was 10 and he was 11. So a couple months later, he emails me again, and by this point, I'm almost 11 and he's almost 12. And all we ever talked about was Power Rangers. Very chaste emails, just all about Power Rangers. Did you watch Zeo this week? And after a while, he says, I'm in California, and they're doing an audition. And the audition is for a new character that's going to be a kid Power Ranger. And at first I was like, no way. Kids can't be Power Rangers. Tweens can't be Power Rangers. That's a teenager thing. That's what Zordon said. And he's like, no, for real. There's a new role, and it's totally going to be a kid Power Ranger. And he shows me a leaked outline on the internet for what is going to be Power Rangers Turbo. That's not the name that was on the document, but that's what it was going to be. So I was like, okay, and I didn't believe it. I thought this was an internet hoax, because even in the 90s, we had fake news. Back then, we called it a different name, bullshit. So I knew that people posted hoaxes all the time. I knew people posted fan fictions as real. This was already an old problem by, where am I at now? This is 96. So we're 96 going into 97. This is already an old problem. I just kind of figured, nah, it's not going to happen. So I was like, whatever, dude. But he kept being persistent, like, no, for real, this audition's actually happening. And then he started naming, like, locations, and he started naming, like, people in the background who I saw in the credits of Power Rangers. And I thought, maybe this guy's legit, because this is, like, real Power Ranger cast information. Not, like, who plays the Power Rangers in Bulk and Skull, but, like, you know, Tony Oliver and all these background people that we see real quick in the credits. So it's like, okay, maybe there's, like, a kernel of truth, but I'm still skeptical. I'm like, whatever. So then his last message to me, we're chatting, and his last message to me is, hold on, I hear a knock at the door. And then offline. I never hear from this guy ever again. And weeks turn into months, and I'm like, what's going on? You know, I thought we were friends. Maybe this is one of those guys who, now that he's famous, maybe he got the role and he's going to forget everybody that knew him when he was not famous. Whatever. Loser. So, you know, I was upset about it, but I was ready to move on, because by this point, I've moved around so many times in my life that I'm used to people being my friend for a short time, and then adios, I never hear from you again. So I'm used to this by now. Sucks, but I am. So imagine a couple weeks later, my surprise. I'm sitting down to dinner, and my mom and dad are watching Dateline. Probably not a child-safe program, but I'm kind of glad we were watching Dateline in this one episode, because there was a guy on there. He was 47. And to paint a picture, if you follow Pokemon, imagine the Pokemon Trubbish, but with, like, long brown hair and a long beard and nails forever. Just imagine Trubbish cosplaying as a troll, and you got an idea of what this guy looked like. Just gross. Total gross looking. And he's on the stand because he is a no-good son of a bitch groomer pedophile. We didn't call it grooming back then. And apparently this guy had been using AOL Kids only to find kids to prey upon. And he was specifically, and this is where my ears perked up, he was specifically targeting fans of Power Rangers. And I was like, I'm a kid, and I'm on Kids Only, and I like Power Rangers. Uh-oh. And then they scrolled through a list of all the screen names this guy had used through America Online, and I screamed. I pointed at the screen and I told my parents, that's him! That's the guy we agreed on, remember? That's his screen name! And my mom was like, what? And she was livid. And this led to a big fat conversation in the house about be careful who you know and you can't trust anybody on the internet. It was so funny that I would later find my husband on the internet, but that's a different story. Now, you might be wondering what happened after this. Did my electronics get taken away? No. Did I lose access to the internet? Also no. And you might be wondering why that is. Well, the reason why is because when my mom came back down to planet Earth after being this freaked out, because a normal parent would be, my mom realized that although the internet is dangerous, and although stranger danger is all around us, I'm still growing up. At some point, this will be a part of my life. Even back in the 90s, we knew the internet was going to be tied up with almost every single job you could imagine because we were already seeing it. When my mom and dad applied for work, the first thing they were asked at that point, do you know Excel? Do you know Word? Do you know Adobe Photo Deluxe, which would become Adobe Photoshop? They were asked this already, so they already knew by the time I got into adulthood, every job I was going to apply for was going to have a need for the internet and a need for computers. So if I don't learn how to handle that now, I'm going to have a bad time getting a job later on. That was the one thing that my parents could agree on, and my mom was like, begrudgingly, I don't really want you on the internet, but this is the way of the world now. So we had a talk about internet safety and all that, and we had already parental controls on the computer. We had them through AOL because being the beta tester family, we had them before it went live to the public. We had parental controls on our video game systems, which had nothing to do with the internet at that point, because this is the 90s. I have a Super Nintendo and an N64. That's not going anywhere towards the internet. We had parental controls on a lot of stuff. So my parents just did this thing. They read how to use parental controls. And then they informed my brother and I, we're going to use parental controls on this electronic or that gizmo or that program, and we will loosen the controls as you reach certain milestones. Either you reach a certain age or a level of maturity where we know you can handle this and you're not going to put a virus on the family computer or talk to people that you're not supposed to. Whichever is going to happen. In my situation, I matured early, so by the time I was 12, I already had full adult controls over everything, but that's because my parents knew I had no interest at this point in reaching out to complete and total strangers. I understood I am a kid. Some of you Gen Xers out there have freaky websites, and yes, I do single out Gen X for this. Have you heard of a website called Bert is Evil? If you haven't, Google it. I'm not sharing the link because it's disgusting. But there's a Wikipedia page on how bad this website was. It was an angry Gen Xer who kept posting some stuff about Bert from Sesame Street that was way past gross and pre-creepypasta. So I'm pretty sure I've outlined what you're going to see on there. X-rated. You can just Google that, and if you're a minor, and I hope you're not watching, but if you are a minor, with your parents, please. It was disgusting. So, I'd already seen, not very good websites involving Sailor Moon, involving Rule 34. I'm hoping you know what Rule 34 is so that you don't have to Google it, and if you do have to Google it, I'm sorry. I'd seen some Rule 34 with Hello Kitty. I saw some involving Pokemon. I'd rather not visit that again. No, I don't mean Vaporeon. I don't. Let's think Weedle, Caterpie, and Pikachu. And Meowth. And I don't want to go into that any further. But I'd already seen by accident and through pop-up ads, which used to be very X-rated, stuff that my mom and dad would not want me to see. So I already understood what was there if I went outside mom and dad's boundaries. And I wasn't interested. That's not what I wanted. So at 12, I had full adult controls over my devices because my parents knew I'm not going to go anywhere and I'm going to show you every message that I get if I get any more messages. So at least there was that. But we had parental controls. We also had a discussion about what happens if I was to disable them, because some kids are smart. Some kids do figure out the parental controls. I did. I did as a joke because we had a discussion about Y2K because my dad was freaked out about what Y2K would do to the computer. So I went through the computer and I reprogrammed myself out of the parental controls, and I changed the clock, and I changed the clock back just to show him nothing was going to happen. Y2K is a hoax. So even at 12, I knew Y2K was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. But because my parents knew I could figure my way out of parental controls, we had a discussion about that too. Hey, if you disobey us and you break the parental controls we've put on these devices, then here's punishments that'll be waiting for you. Like, if you do it the first time, no computer for a week. If you do it the second time, we're taking the internet. Do it a third time, here's some chores you're going to be doing around the house. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take your electronics away forever. I'm going to steal your stuff because you didn't do what I wanted. No, it was just a matter of you won't be on the internet for this particular amount of time. The computer's still going to be where the computer is. You can still use the computer for other things, just not the internet. And it was all common sense stuff. My parents never were like, I'm going to steal your electronics to teach you a lesson. They didn't do that. It was just a matter of, leave the parental controls alone and you can go on the internet for, an hour or two a day. Because that was my screen time before we called it that back then. And that's how they handled it. And that's how we should be handling this. I get that it's a scary world. I've been hacked before. I've been doxxed before. It's not fun. It's not pleasant. I've had strangers come at me before. I've got videos on this channel about the stalker I deal with. But you know what? Those are things that can still happen even when they're grown up. There's no age limit on this, which is terrifying. But if you're a parent, what you should do is get yourself quickly educated. Learn how to use parental controls. I know things are different now. We're not in the 90s anymore. We've got smartphones and we've got all kinds of smart devices. Well, guess what? We have more control over that now than we did in the 90s. I mean, in the 90s, it was pretty much the V-chip and a couple of pieces of software, and that's all we had, and it was utter crap. But today you can go through your kids' Google Play, and you can decide what they're going to see and what they're going to download and what they're not going to download. There are individual apps that have parental controls on there. And there's also apps that are specific, this is for ages 13 plus, we don't want your children on here. So if you catch your kids on there, it's not just a matter of deleting their account and deleting the app from the phone. You can also go to the web, you can also send an email to the developers and say, keep this away from my kid. You can, and I just set this on one of my video games just to see if it works. On one of the games on my phone, there's actually a spot there for parents where you can set a timer on the game to have the game shut off after a specific time period. And some of the console games now have this too. It's really interesting. Nintendo is probably the best at it. There's 2 different Bowser videos where Bowser sets controls on Bowser Jr.'s Nintendo Switch. And it's very straightforward. A kindergartner can follow this video. Set the controls on your kids' devices, and then do this magic thing that my mom did. Talk to them. Have a whole conversation with them. Tell them, I'm not just doing this because I'm afraid a stranger will do something and it'll be all your fault. No, tell them the truth. I'm doing this because here's some studies on what this does to your brain. I'm not going to mention that. Here's some studies on what this does to your brain. Here's some things that I found on... There we go. On, why this would be a bad thing for you. Here's why we're concerned about who you might be talking to online. Just talk to them about those things. Tell them why you're setting the parental controls. And then, just like my mom did, tell your kids We set the parental controls on this console or that phone or this computer, and if you try to crack the code, you know, no TV for today, or no use of the internet for today. You know, you can still have your kids on the internet, you can still use the internet, and you can still teach your kids how to be responsible with it without completely going full Amish on it. You know, because we're in an environment today where not only when they grow up are they going to need the internet and need to know how to use these devices for jobs, they already need them for school. And school is polarizing because you have school buses with Wi-Fi and teachers that snatch the phones because they want to throw their power around. It's not even to teach your child a lesson, it's just they want to throw their weight around. But your kids still need a phone. Your kids still need the internet. Because if they're going to be going to a public school, and I'm sorry for you if that's the case, in case of another school shooting, or in case of what we had just recently in my town, we had a melee in my town 2 weeks ago. A bunch of kids had a brawl at their school that spilled out into the parking lot. In cases like that, you want a GPS device on your kid. You want some way to find your kid so you know my kid is safe, my kid's not a part of this, or if your kid is a part of this, what happened? So going full no tech is just going to provide you with extra stress because in case they're away from home, they have no way to contact you. So your kids still need a device. But you need to be the parent, and you need to teach them how to use that device. My mom had long talks with me about how not to be a butthead on the internet, don't start fights, don't antagonize strangers. If somebody has decided to attack you, here's how to handle that. Because, of course, we also live in a situation where just block them and ignore them doesn't work. Hence the videos I've produced about having a stalker. Sometimes they're obsessive. So you got to talk to your kids about that too. And talk to them about legal avenues. If somebody makes you uncomfortable, here's how to talk to a police officer. Here's the ic3.gov website. Don't abuse it. Just make sure you're using it only for specifically bad cybercrime cases. Just have these conversations. They're relatively short. And if you're having a problem, YouTube has a bunch of videos that act as tutorials to help walk you through them. Most of them are shorts now. They're so short, they're less than 3 minutes, and it's not a long conversation. And if you just take the time to be a parent, you're not going to have to be like these other people we see in the news who've gone back to landlines and no technology and smoke signals. I think is going to be the new one now, which with how many wildfires we've had, please don't do smoke signals. But you don't have to be like the pearl clutchers we see in the news. You can just be mom or dad, and you can just talk to your kids. My mom did that with me. And because of that, I didn't have the internet taken from me. I didn't have any of my devices taken from me. I still have all of my old video game consoles from when I was a kid. You know, I was a little bit safer back when this was all new. And that's the other thing too. A lot of this that you're seeing with people finding your kids, I'm sorry, but that was what we had in the 90s. It happened to me, and you know, that's how we were able to deal with it, was we had nice long talks and we had trust. We built trust with each other, mom to child, about how to deal with that. But anyway, that was a story I wanted to tell because, like I said, I saw too many people in my own age group freaking out, and I hope that if there was a parent watching this video, that they feel a little more confident in using parental controls and having those hard conversations with their children. I hope if you chose to let your kids watch this video, which I'm not comfy with, but if you chose that, at least you watched it together and you're having that discussion now, and it's probably not going to be more than 10 minutes, honestly. I hope that you feel better about the world that we're in, and you know that this isn't as new as you might think it is, nor is it as bad. We're just talking about it more because that's normal. We should talk about it more. And that's healthy. We didn't talk about it as much back then. We're doing that now, and that's the correct thing to do. So, if you sat through the whole 39-minute video, thank you for that. I'm going to go have some lunch, and it looks like I got to put on my eczema medication again, because I'm having a flare with whatever my neighbor decided to grow outside. I don't know what it is. It's a pretty purple flower, but I'm allergic to it apparently. So I need to tell him to move that away from my window again. But thank you for sitting with me for, oh, I see the timer now, 40 minutes. You're going to see that down there, I guess. But thank you for sitting with me. And don't be afraid of the internet. Just have a little bit of common sense with it. Share the story if you want to show people that we even had this problem in the 90s. And I'll see you folks soon.